Welcome to the House of Rue podcast. I'm your host, Rosanna McHale. As someone who has spent a career working with leaders, change makers, and people from all walks of life, I've always been fascinated by the human story behind the achievement. On House of Rue, we explore the stories behind the title, the performance, and the public image. Because behind every accomplishment is a story of purpose, resilience, and becoming. And behind every title is a person waiting to be seen. Let's begin. Today I'm joined by Jess Brown. She is a Canadian actress, acting coach, and storyteller who has spent years helping performers connect more deeply with themselves, their craft, and the human experience. But beyond the roles, the performances, and the training, Jess is someone who has dedicated her life to understanding people, what motivates us, what challenges us, and really what allows us to connect authentically with one another. And as someone who recently began my own acting journey, I've had the privilege of learning from Jess firsthand as my acting coach. And one of the things that immediately stood out to me was her belief that great performances aren't created by pretending to be someone else or by memorizing our lines, but really by understanding ourselves more deeply as humans. So today we're going to go beyond acting. We're going to go behind the scenes of the industry to explore what it truly means to pursue a dream, even when the path ahead isn't always clear. We're going to talk about the moments that aren't always black and white, the realities that audiences rarely see, the uncertainty, the sacrifices, the self-doubt, but also the courage it takes to keep moving forward when you don't have everything figured out. And one of the things that I've come to appreciate most is that acting simply isn't about the performance. It's about understanding people, it's about vulnerability, and it's about courage. Jess, welcome to House of Rue, and thank you for launching the channel, which is crazy. I can't think of any other person to do this for episode 1 but you. So thanks for accepting to do this and to launch it. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, of course. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for thinking of me for this. I'm very excited to sit and chat with you.
I kind of wanted to start doing this as almost like a trend with every guest, is to really get to know them and to understand who these people were before all the titles and, the accolades. So let's get into it. I am very curious to know not just the actress or my personal trainer, acting trainer, but really just when you look at your own journey, who's Jess before acting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like Jess has always been an artist. I, as a kid was very fortunate to be put into pretty much anything I was interested in. My parents were like, try it all, and I initially actually had found a love for dance.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, my childhood was filled with dance full on. And then at some point, my brother wanted to try his hand at acting, and my parents' agreement was that he had to try musical theater
Oh, that's
first to make
interesting.
sure. Yeah. Well,
Why is that?
because my cousins were child actors.
Okay.
And so Cody, my brother, and I got a glimpse onto like what set life looked like. And my parents wanted to make sure that Cody wasn't just wanting it for the glamour and that
Right.
he actually had an interest in acting.
Hmm.
And so, you know, I don't necessarily really remember this, but I've been told that, I'd also often go to rehearsals for my brother's musical theater. There was a children's theater called Four Seasons Musical Theater in Victoria, where I'm from. And I would watch all the rehearsals, and they would often try to be like, Jess, do you want a part? Like, you can come on up. Because I'd sit under a table and I'd know all the words and I'd know the dances
Of course you did.
and yeah. And I guess eventually I slowly made my way up into the stage. And so from a young age, my life was filled with dance rehearsals and plays. I was often all through middle school and high school doing the, doing dance through school, doing dance through my company that I danced with, dancing competitively. We would travel and go to festivals, and I was working on a school play. I was doing a play with Four Seasons Musical Theater, and then around, I think I was maybe 13 or 15. I think I was 13 when I first did my first production with a company called Victoria Operatic Society, which was like a volunteer musical theater. Ooh, that's my glass. A volunteer musical theater company, but quite high caliber.
Mhm.
And so I just like was immersed. And my dad used to be like, I don't know how you do it. You have about 35 dance numbers in your head right now, at all times. But my focus was definitely dance. It was never acting. I acted, and I guess I was doing it anyways with the musical theater and stuff, but I never considered myself an actor. I was a dancer.
So when would you say then there was this transition from, the dance world into the storytelling world? I mean, performance is performance, but it's a big would you say it's a big transition?
It was, and it was honestly a pretty monumental shift. It was potentially one of like the biggest things that happened to me in my life. I had like a freak accident that resulted in a pretty bad back injury when I was 20,
Oh my
maybe.
God.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I'll give you Cole's notes. I fell actually into a 6 foot deep cement trench that a construction company had dug out on the side of the road, and they didn't mark off, and it was nighttime. And I stepped into it. Um, and so I was hurt quite badly. We're not talking like hospitalization for long periods of time, but a very long recovery as far as getting my back health back to where it was. Well, I don't actually think it'll ever be back where it was,
Mhm.
but it pretty immediately stopped my ability to dance. And through that, stopped my access to theater. And I'm by my own choice, because dance was more my focus and it was something that I put all my energy into. I tried to, exist in that world, and my injury was just too much. And so I stopped everything. And
How'd you even
I
deal with
was
that
like,
the mental charge? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just listening
no,
to you
please
and I'm
go.
like, holy crap, this is all you've known. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, it's like not even really a choice because your body is telling you otherwise. Like, how do you
Yeah.
even deal with the mental pressure of just
Yeah, it was
accepting?
devastating.
Yeah.
And actually, it's interesting. This is the first time it's making me feel emotional in a really long time. I don't think I've kind of walked through the whole process before in a very long time. And yeah, it was very devastating. And really disrupting to my life and what I knew. And I think it took me feeling really bad about it for a really long time. And then after, as I was moving through it, I was like, oh my God, I just like what I didn't realize was that performance and dance and artistry was therapy to me, and
Mm.
was like, I think because I'd done it my whole life, I didn't actually recognize that was self-expression, and that was like,
Your way of like existing in the world.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so eventually I was like, okay, I need to channel this somewhere else. I need to find a place to channel it. And I started taking like a film acting school, or just classes, like weekly classes, kind of what you and I are doing, but it was like an in-person format. And yes, the shift from musical theater dance to film was like, I
Kind of
it
like
was
how I
uh it
feel
was a
right now
journey.
with you.
Yes.
Just
Yeah. Yeah. This uncomfortability that I'm watching you exist in, I'm like, oh, I know that too well.
Well, yeah. And I mean, for those listening, watching, wherever you are, I just want to say something. I always tell Jess every time we go into a class that she makes me feel so uncomfortable, but in the most positive way. And apparently it's normal. So here we go.
It is. Hey, you can't grow in a comfort zone.
That's right. Okay,
It
so
is. It is an uncomfortable thing to learn anything new, but
yeah.
then in such like a vulnerable way.
Yeah.
It's like you can learn something new on paper, and like, you know, have your own personal moments, but to be learning something new in front of people and like wanting to look a certain way, and it was a lot, and I struggled, but I remember the moment it clicked. I think any actor can relate to like that feeling of like it was the first time I completely got lost in a scene. And I remember the scene ended and I was like, whoa. And I went outside, and the coach at the time, his name's Joe McCoy, he followed me outside, and he was like, I remember him sitting down beside me, and he goes, "You just got bit." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You just got bit. I saw it happen in your eyes." Fast forward to Joe decided to open up a school called the Victoria Academy of Dramatic Arts in Victoria. He really wanted me to go to the school. I thought I knew better. I was like, "No, I don't think I'm going to." Long story short, he was quite adamant and, became a bit of a mentor for me and really wanted to push me into going to the school, offered a part-time program, to which I accepted. And then as soon as I was there, like day one, looking around, I was like, wait, I don't want to be part-time. I want to be here all time.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was
So it
very lucky
clicked
to
for
receive a
you like
scholarship.
right away?
Yeah, like I think I just found my place, and it was the same kind of feeling like I was in that school. So it was a 9-month intensive, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, which often led into like 9 to 7, like very immersive. Um, and I think what I felt for the first time in a long time was that community of like artists together doing something together. And yeah, and then it just from there. So that was a very long way to answer that question. But I guess, yeah, Jess has always felt like an artist. It's just been, put in different outlets.
And
But
would you say that today it's not something that, you just enjoy, but something that you need, it seems like,
yes,
right?
yes. And I've had a few different awakenings in my life to understand that,
Hmm.
because I think that the industry can be really challenging, and there's a lot of doubt, and there's been times where I've stepped away, but it keeps coming back to,
Hmm.
okay, no, this is what I have to do. So
I want to ask you a question because, I myself, before joining, your acting school, I often wondered like how important is it to take a program, acting program? How important is it a myth to say like, oh, and I ask this simply because, I did my master's degree in university in social sciences. Great. But it's totally different finishing this, going out in the real world, and then applying. Like how that transition between having your community, your safe space, the people who mentor you, and then once you're done, it's like, it is it really scary, or do you feel like you ease into the real world outside of the program, outside of the school?
both. I think both. I was fortunate to I ended up moving over to Vancouver with a girl that I was very close with from my school. So, we kind of were accessing this new industry together. So I felt like I had my community very close to me. But that didn't mean it wasn't scary. It was a very new environment. And um, to answer your question about whether or not I think like a school is necessary, I'm in two ways about it. I think that school provided me everything I needed to feel confident to step in. Obviously, lots to learn, things that you can only learn when you're kind of here doing it. Um, but I know there are some schools that are longer lasting, and I think training is important. You have to learn how to do it.
Hmm.
I always tell people, I'm like, you don't expect someone to just like enjoy swimming and then think that they're going to head to the Olympics because they swam 3 times that year. Like
Hmm.
this is a very competitive industry. And so you have to treat it as such. And if everyone else is leveling up around you and you're just staying here, that's why I continue training. I mean, I train at least half the year. And but I think I don't think going away to school for years is super necessary. Diplomas and degrees aren't necessary. No one's ever looked at my resume and been like, oh, amazing, you have a diploma. Like
Yeah.
I think immersing yourself sooner than later, I think, is the best thing because it takes time to build a reputation and to be trusted in this industry. I had a very good friend a long time ago who was incredibly talented and was kind of over here doing it and then went away to school and I'm sure that that was incredible for him and he continues to have a good career. So I don't think he's any worse for it. But I also was like, it's such a shame that you're ripping yourself out of the audition world for a couple of years to go do that because I'm like, you could be here like continuing to audition. So I think whatever makes someone feel like the most confident. I think I needed because I was brand new stepping in. I really liked that full on process. I loved immersing myself into it fully. But I think you can get that for someone like yourself who's like, this is something I'm really interested in, but I also, I'm a mom, I have a career, I have a life. Like, you
Mhm.
can find that in weekly training as well and build a community that's meaningful.
I think I asked that question because I'm also very curious to hear what you think about nepotism. You see a lot of, obviously big names out there, especially in Hollywood. You see their 5-year-old getting roles, and how does it make you feel for someone who has trained professionally? And this is I find it like I actually have so much respect after meeting you and after starting doing training. I'm really, really surprised at just how much work goes into it. How does
Mm.
that feel? Do you guys hear anything in the community, the acting community or in the industry where there's real frustration about people just getting roles because their parents are so and so? Or is that something that doesn't bother you?
No, I think, I mean, I guess I don't know these people and I don't know if they've trained or not. Um, yeah, like I just like the world's not fair, some people have more opportunity available to them.
100%.
Um, I almost I would say more than nepotism, I I struggle with the fact that there's a larger respect for American actors than there are Canadian actors. I think that Canadian actors have had to kind of like trip over ourselves to be respected and to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
Strictly because of location and a lot of our projects coming here are American and um I think that if they were lucky enough to be given the opportunity and they did a great job, then like good for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it can be frustrating to maybe see someone get the job who didn't do the best work, but I also am not quick to judge an actor based on one performance because there's so much that you don't have control with, like the editing process and
Oh
all
yeah.
this stuff.
So many things
I
go
think
into it. It's not just the actor and the acting, right?
so many. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and one thing I've learned is that you go and you do your job and you take your experience for what it was, and then you just disassociate from whatever it is. And if it turns out great, it's great. And if it's not, you still had the experience, you still got paid, you still moved your career forward. Um, but I think the one thing that's really bothering me these days is that a social media following can be very important. That
Yes.
bugs me. I
In
think
what
that
way
there's a
can you
lot
tell
of,
me? Like, I mean, I'm curious to know. Like, in how are you
yeah,
seeing that impact?
I think that there's influencers getting jobs because the company knows they'll bring viewing in. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of influencers who also are great actors,
Mm-hmm.
and I 100% understand that she's amazing and she has a following. Great, but I do see influencers getting jobs based on the fact that you know
High
they have a
following.
following. I mean, I spoke to a director and a producer a long time ago, anonymous. I didn't even really know them, and they were asking me, they're like, we're looking for this specific thing and in this character, and he looks like we want him to look like this and this, and do you know anyone? And I did. I was like, oh my god, I know the perfect person, and he had a career and he had a thing. And I showed them and they were like, wow, he's amazing. And their next question was, how many followers does he have on Instagram?
Oh,
because
really, eh?
this is a lower budget. We want to make sure that whoever we hire
The
brings the use to the film.
expectations. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and so that can be tough to get to witness things getting away from the artistry and more towards
Yeah.
the financial aspect and the viewership.
I really, really relate to what you're saying. I'm a millennial and I didn't grow up in this environment whatsoever. So the even just like starting this podcast, it felt very, for some people it's so natural. You're just gonna go and like, put a video and call it a day. But for me, it feels like such a monumental event every time because I never got exposed to this. And even if social media is available to me, I used it in a totally different capacity. And so that kind of obsession, I see it as well. And yeah, to a certain degree, it's funny, like you can't live without it, but at the same time, it frustrates you to your core because
Yeah.
so much is dependent on it, you know?
Oh, it's an addiction.
It
It's
is.
an addiction of this new generation. And I also was around before it was a thing. And I prefer that so much.
Are you
And
saying
I
dial up
really,
internet? Is that what you're saying? Because that was
yes.
my time.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
I mean, I could leave the dial up. Honestly, that was annoying. I could never hear that sound again in my life, and that would be fantastic.
Right.
But the apps and oh my god, there's just like,
So much.
in order to stay relevant, you have to pour yourself into your tiny screen that you carry around. And my life right now is solely based on like, how can I get away from that? But I can't get away too far because
Right.
I fear that if I'm not relevant on the internet, that my career becomes irrelevant. So it's this like, and not to mention, like, it's so toxic. I every once in a while have to just go mute my friends who I love because they're killing it in the industry if I'm having like maybe a not so like great time, because just like witnessing people winning and doing things and being great because everyone posts it when it's great for them can be really
And nobody's going to
challenging. And
show
that's not to
you,
say I'm
nobody is going to show you the negative story either, right? So it does
yes.
become, that perception, that positive perception all the time. And who knows too, right? I mean, yes, I find it
Hmm.
extremely draining seeing this all day, but also don't freaking believe everything you see either. But it is,
Totally.
I could totally see how that
Yeah.
could be draining.
Well, and you're just allowing the outside world to influence your day, like sometimes before it even gets started. Like I've, you know, heard a bunch that, how you spend your first, I can't remember what it was, like 7 minutes or something, can dictate your entire day. And so I'm currently working on a rule with myself that I don't even look at my phone until I've made my bed, done my skincare, drank a glass of water, and done some form of movement. And that's not only just social media, but that's just like allowing texts to come in, allowing emails, allowing like anything else to influence my day, because I'm just like, I feel like it's getting harder to have your own thoughts and really check in with yourself and be like, how do I feel before I pour myself into comparisons and like other people's opinions and everyone else's energy?
Yeah, and I don't think it's just acting. I think it's in it's in anything. I mean, just like the influencer has to be posting, God knows, like 13, 15 times a day to stay relevant, or else, well, that's the reality. If I'm not posting enough, like then who's gonna notice? But it's definitely, I find, a really hard line, right? Because the moment you decide you're gonna let yourself in to everybody else, that's when you lose your freedom too. So
Yeah.
it's hard to juggle. Listen, girl, I'm happy
Yeah.
being a millennial and I'm happy not being, connected to the world 24/7. Although my
Same.
husband would say I'm always scrolling on my phone. So,
Hey, as long as we're aware of it. I mean, we're all victim of it. Like it's something that's been kind of thrust upon us, and it's made to be like consumable. Like it is, they're very intelligent on how they run these apps and how they make these things. There's no dummies making these phones. It is created in order to make us addicted. And so I think like there's no shame in falling subject to it, but I think that being aware of it and wanting to go the other direction, I think, is a positive step.
Yeah, for sure. I
Mhm.
I'm curious to know, were there any moments in your career where the acting industry triggered you in a way that made you want to give up on acting?
Mm. Well, I did actually. I did give up.
You gave up on
I
acting.
about yeah for a few years.
Okay.
Hmm.
Please do tell.
I
These are the things I don't get in
hence my
my
second
class.
awakening of artistry. um, I was here and I was working, and I was very lucky to get an agent, and I was very lucky to book early, and I was working for a few years, and then comes I started to get what I see now is better and pinned a lot. And pinned is like pinned, shortlisted, holds. It's all kind of the same world. It basically says, hey, we've selected you and a few others to kind of move closer to the project. We love what you did. You're now going to be looked at with network and producers, and so you're on the line, like you're very close to these things. And I think I was like pinned and dropped probably like 7 times in a row, and I started to get in my head and started to be like, I don't have an education. Hmm. Like, if this doesn't work, like, what am I
What's your
doing?
plan
Like,
B?
what?
Hmm.
Yeah. And just around the same time, I mean, I've always worked in the restaurant industry, it's always been my side hustle. And around the same time, the restaurant I was working for, which is a good corporate establishment, were offering me a salary position as a manager. And I just kind of was like, you know what? Yeah. I remember having a very tear filled conversation with my agent. I was like, I just need to like know that I can do anything else, because
Hmm.
right now it's feeling like my entire life is invested in this, which it quite literally was. And I think I was seeing the effects of what it feels like to put yourself out there and then lose, and then put yourself out there and then lose the job, and do that on a repeat. And it really breaks you down if you're not
Oh, for sure.
like centered and in a good space and have the right mindset about it.
And you can't expect
And
someone to have that right mindset all the time, too, because when it happens, I mean, you know, it's you're human. You're allowed to feel.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
And then
the
what
rejection
happened?
in this industry is real. Like
Yeah.
it's no joke, and it takes a very strong mindset in order to get through it. And so yeah, I quit for like a few years, and I managed the restaurant, and acting was always in the back of my head. I wondered if I would get back to it. And
What
then I was
made
actually
you?
very fortunate.
What made you continue and pursue it
Well,
once again?
I am very fortunate to have made a wonderful connection with a producer. He generally works in Hallmark. His name's Michael Larkin. And he was another kind of like a little bit of a mentor for me when I came here. I met him at the restaurant. He, offered me an extra job on a film he was doing, and took special interest in that, let me come look and see what was going on with the cameras. And then, he would always try to get me in jobs for shows. I think he got me my first speaking job. I'd go to auditions in the room, and he'd throw a couple roles at me. He really I think he saw something in me and wanted to help. And so he came to town, and I ran into him in the restaurant, and he was like, "Oh, I'm in town doing a film. You should audition." And I was like, "I'm not acting anymore, actually." And he was like, "Oh." And then a day later, my agent, my old agent, who's now my current agent again, called me up, and she was like, "Hey, I know you're not acting anymore. I know I'm not representing you, but Michael had contacted me, and he wants you to tape for this movie. I can represent you if you have any interest in doing this." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And I ended up booking the job. And it was a little job, like a couple scenes, some lines. I played like a server, hard. And I remember it was nothing special, but I remember driving home, and it was like that scene from like a comedy drama where she's like driving the car, windows open, like hair blowing there. And I was crying. I was sobbing. I was like, ah. And I was like, that was the best day I've had in the last 3 years.
Wow.
And the next day I walked into Joey, and I was like basically next in line to start, interviewing for AGM or GM roles. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm sorry. I got to
Wow.
go. I need to go back and I need to go act again. Like that was just like the thing that clicked for me right away. I was like, that was literally the best day I've had in the last 3 years. And so I was like, okay, fine. I succumb to the artistry. I guess this is just for me. So
It's always in your blood.
yeah, it seemingly circles back to me. And I think that when someone opens a door and it feels right, you just have to walk through it. And so, yeah, I guess I finally have just like, yeah, okay, this is just what I'm doing. And even when I'm having like bad days or questions about it, I'm like, no, I've already tested this theory. I'm good. So,
Oh, that's great. And
hmm,
it's nice to know also that, no matter what, you always find a way to go back to it. There's always a way when it's truly your passion. And despite all the difficulties and whatnot. But one of the things that I'm curious to ask you, I know we talked about it very briefly before, but you often help students like myself connect with emotions. And a lot of times it's through, what we call substitution or by trying to find something personal experience in your life that you can kind of relate or substitute the scene with so that you can imagine or see yourself in it. What would you say acting taught you about yourself?
everything. I think it's been like a very slow unraveling of my life experience. Sometimes things happen to us and then we experience it and we exist in it and then we move on from it and we cope and we compartmentalize and we just move forward and we don't look back. But something about acting is you're constantly reaching back into these things. And I I love it for that. It can feel painful, but I feel like I'm constantly using my own personal life experiences to grow. And like certain times, and there's certain experiences that Nadine, my coach, the owner of the studio
Mm-hmm.
that we work together with, um she always says, when we're using substitution, maybe don't use something that's too close to you because you don't want to re-traumatize yourself. um Use something from that's a little separated so that you're not sometimes it's good to leave those things aside. We're
Yeah.
not saying
If
just
it's like
like,
traumatic or whatever, right? Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's no sense in beating a dead horse if you're already struggling with something. It
Of
can be
course.
actually sometimes harmful to be using those types of things.
Mhm.
So, for instance, I had a very important loss a few years ago, and for a long time, I couldn't touch on the subject matter around that. If I had to work in a film project, I would just get over it, or deal with it.
Mhm.
But in class specifically, we weren't touching that. And then, as of recently, we've circled around to that kind of subject matter again. And Nadine had asked me, like, is this going to be triggering? And I'm like, no, you know what? Like, I finally feel like no one should tell this story but me. Well, not no one. Other people have the same experience of
Right.
loss and grief. But I'm like, I am the right person to tell this story,
Your story. Yeah, exactly.
be my version of this story
Right.
or share my version of this story. Um, and there's something empowering in taking something traumatic and finally coming around and being able to be like, I can speak from a place where I know what this is and it's very complex and I can use that. So, yeah, I think it's like been a constant learning of, because now I can take something that was very harmful to my life and my heart and my existence, and I can now try to start to build and use it for some good. And I just think that that's like such a gift. I think that
But it
I'm a
takes
pretty
time
big,
too, right? Like for you to
definitely.
come, and it may never, to your point,
Hmm.
some people may choose not to touch that part of
Yeah.
their experience, right? But actually, speaking
Yeah.
of different versions, like How do you stay connected with yourself as Jess, you know, beneath like all the different roles? I say this because I find it really fascinating in certain movies, kind of big caliber movies. Some of the lead actors, they stay in the zone for like months and they breathe it. They
Mhm.
don't want to interact with people because they want to remain like, as close as possible to the essence of the character. But how do you, once it's over, or even while you're kind of filming and you're still in character, how do you stay connected to yourself and to your reality beyond the role?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big topic, I think, especially these days. For me, I feel grounded in myself because my characters are often a version of me,
Mm.
whether it be ugly or like, sure, if I'm playing a killer, no, I don't have those tendencies. It's not my thing. But maybe some of the whatever that character's feeling, whether it be hurt or desire or need for something, or I can connect with that. Um, when we speak on getting lost in a character and how do you come out of it, I was just chatting with my friend Scott, who's also known as Kid Cudi. I was lucky enough to work with him on a project last year, and we were just chatting about how immersed and emotional he feels when he's in these things, and some of these scenes, and how hard it is to come out of it and like to calm himself down. And my fiance has a friend who is one of the first intimacy coordinators for mental health.
Oh wow.
And so I think that that needs to be more in place these days, because yes, you can have your own ritual where, I had a coach who was like, I have a ritual. I make my tea. It's always the same tea. I call my mom, and that's kind of my grounding thing.
Mm.
But you can be like, it can be really draining coming out of a really intense project. And, I think some actors, especially when they're bigger actors, the vibe on set is like, don't don't interact, don't like leave them alone. Like if they
Hmm.
walk away, don't follow. Like they
Let
want
them be.
space. Like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, everyone gives them so much space, and I think that having one person that is able to step in and do whatever kind of ritual with them or talk to them or make sure that they're coming out of that space in a healthy way, I think there needs to be more of that in this industry, because we see how many countless stories of losing incredible actors after,
And it's such
Heath
a young
Ledger
age
after the
too.
Joker.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Like, and that's when the brilliance of his work was his detriment, or
Hmm.
turned out to be. I mean, I don't know that story fully. I know only what I've heard, so I'm not going to speak too much on it. But my perception of it is like his commitment and dedication to the art was ultimately his demise. And maybe if there were other things set in place, maybe it wouldn't have gone that way. Um, and so I think until that's established, I think it's important to have your own ritual. I don't know that I have perfectly developed that. Sometimes I just kind of allow myself to get lost in it. There's almost like this gratuitous feeling of being like, I'm so in there and I need some time. There's
Hmm.
there's something about resonating in that can be a little bit addicting as well.
Yeah.
Um, I'm,
No,
I'm
for
not
sure.
sure what the right answer to all that
Well,
is,
there's no
but
right or wrong answer. I think it's all about perception and your experience too. I mean, I'm sure if I ask another, actor tomorrow, I'm going to get a different answer. But I guess this leads me to the next question. Like, was there a moment because of the way the acting industry is where you felt like you had to reinvent yourself?
I'm well, maybe right now. I think I'm in the starting stage of what is maybe a necessary reinvention. I have always, you know, found my comfort zone in like this youthful kind of woo energy, and it served me really well. I think that, I get to add a lot of like my fun sarcasm to a lot of my characters. I think like I think I can be a little like spunky and sharp, and I think that that plays into a lot of my work. Um, I am in the process of aging up right now, and so I need to look at what that is for me. And this has been my first year or so, or maybe more, of coaching. And so I'm kind of stepping into like what feels like a very late stage adulthood. I guess I've been in denial for the last chunk of time, but I'm well into my adulthood. But I don't know. This is starting to feel like, okay, now people are looking to me to set an example. Now I need to find, what does Jess look like when she's head of a corporation?
Right.
What does Jess look like as a mother? What does Jess look like as like a voice of authority? And so I'm having to now, I guess, shift in, I wouldn't say reinvent, but maybe become more curious about
Starting to navigate like something new and different. But I find that also very difficult because you look incredibly, not like a mom of a 10-year-old. Like you look amazing, you
yes.
look young. And so do you find that is that something that hinders it in a way? Like the fact, I mean,
Yeah.
and I say this like honestly, because I mean, it could be very difficult if they're trying to give the role to a 40-year-old woman and you clearly don't look like it. So how do you find that?
Mm-hmm.
I find that stressful because like it feels like you're kind of in limbo between two different worlds.
Exactly that. I feel like I'm banging my head up against a wall with that right now. Someone, I was just bartending the other day, and some guy was like, "We've all just been sitting here and like, can I ask how old you are? You're baffling us." He's like, "Because you look so young, but your energy has this like, you have
Maturity
a,
in your whys and
yeah."
your
He's like, "You have this like aura of an older, not like, an older person." And he's like, "We cannot figure it out." And like, and so I think that's kind of where I'm getting stuck right now, is I do look younger, but there's this like, and I think I am like partially trying to figure it out, maybe a touch in denial. It's always hard to kind of age out of roles and be like, no,
yeah, for
no, my
sure.
youth. But I do, there was some actors of a younger cast project that's shooting in Vancouver the other day, and they were sitting at the bar, and I was just kind of watching them exist, and there's this like aura of youthfulness that is like this like confidence layered with maybe insecurity and anxiety and not really knowing who you are yet, but like doubling down on the confidence.
Right.
And it's this energy that's like palpable.
Right.
And as I'm watching it, I was like, oh, maybe I can't do that. I don't think I have that anymore. I now have this, again, this glass. I need to put it over there. Sorry. I almost like know myself too well now to feign that innocence.
Right.
But I don't look old enough to, like you said, play mom of 10-year. And so, yeah, I do feel like I'm in this like really weird limbo stage, and it's reflecting right now, I think, with the amount of work I'm getting. I'm in a bigger lull than I've ever been in my career right now. And I'm just like,
But just who decides that? Is it the industry that decides on that
who decides?
biological clock? Like who
God, I
makes
wish I
that
knew.
decision?
I'd love to have a conversation.
I'm curious
I
because I
don't
mean,
know.
if you don't need to look like you're 40, then why, But again,
Yeah.
it's fascinating to me the dynamics of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Well, and it's all, at the end of the day, casting is all painting a picture, right? Like it's pairing everyone with everyone. I have played a mom before. It
Mhm.
looks kind of silly in my mind. I have a picture of me standing with the kids, and I'm like, I look like their older sister. I do not look like a mom. But it worked for the project because they were trying to, it was a throwback scene with the one of the leads of the show who's already cast. He's in his like 50s. And it had to throw back to like us when we were young parents because I passed away. So the only way to make him look younger is probably to cast me who looks younger so that the audience can kind of be like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Make that connection.
so if she's that age, then he must have been much younger because they can only make him look so much younger.
Right.
So in that case, although it seemed a little far fetched, it was necessary for the story and it worked to paint the picture.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It just depends. Like, it depends on who's cast as the lead, and then they build around that. And, like, man, I'd love to talk to whoever's making the calls out there because that's something about the industry that can be absolutely baffling is like, you just don't know ever what's going on.
Yeah. No, and
And it's
would
insane.
you say, like, based on your experience, Jess, the actress, Jess, the person, what support do you think performers, sorry, most need that they don't necessarily get? Or what are, what are the things that we don't tell you, but you wish someone was there in the beginning of your journey telling you, hey, like, watch out for this? Or is there something that they're not, that
Yeah.
something you wish they could have, someone said something to you that would have helped you fast track?
Yeah. I mean, I think I could write a novel on all the things I wish I knew before I learned it the hard way. Um, what I think is lacking is mentorship. Um, I'm very fortunate to have, as you've probably kind of gathered from the story that I've told you, to have collected mentors along the way that have been like, here, let me hold your hand through this, or let me hold your hand through this. Or my agent was a huge mentor for me as well. But not all agents have the amount of time she had at the time to be such a mentor for me.
Mhm.
But there's so many things so mentorship is one. And then I think also like some sort of access into the real world, whether it be shadowing, whether it be, I don't know, like sometimes I tell people, like, go do extra work first and make sure that you actually like what's going on set. But there's so many things that, you learn how to act and you learn how to audition, but then you get to set and oh my God, it's a completely different beast. And you're walking around like, what?
What is
Where
going
am I?
on?
Where do
Yeah.
I go? What do I do? I was so lucky, speaking of my agent, my first big speaking role on a large production. This is so random that this happened, but my agent at the time when I first signed with her, she was also acting. She was kind of finishing off her acting career. She happened to have booked the same movie that I booked. We happened to be working the same day and placed in like conjoining trailers.
Wow.
So even on my, yeah, what odds, crazy.
Right?
But
Yeah.
even on my first day on set, I had her there to be like, oh, this is, you can go over here and get this, or like they're going to come to you for this, or, I had someone to bounce off because you just don't know how the machine works. And I think that that can be where something like nepotism comes into play
Hmm.
because they're like, there's a lot of worth in acting is one thing, knowing how a set runs, knowing what to do, knowing where to go, knowing having the confidence, not feeling like I'm shutting down inside because I'm so scared I don't know what I'm doing, so I can't do my best work. That's like invaluable. And there's a reason, aside from people being fantastic actors, but there's a reason people book again and again and again
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have time to baby you. They want you to show up, they want you to be confident, they want your best work. So who's doing the best work? The people that get the most practice.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned, I can name every single set that I've like, that was a lesson in continuity. No one taught me that. That was a lesson in like hitting your mark. Didn't know about that. And all of them are hard days where that was getting in the way of my acting because I'm so in my head being like, trying to learn. And so I don't even know exactly what it looks like, but
It's almost like a one-stop shop, like to help set you up, whatever that looks
yeah,
like.
but Yeah, like something like that, or the ability for like someone to get paired up and get to follow a director, and see what are the conversations having. Just getting a chance to, like, no pressure, get on set, no one's looking at you, and you can just take it in because it's a beast. When I'm working on a movie, and you can only really do this if you're a lead or supporting, or because otherwise you're kind of annoying. I'll always go to what they call village, which is where all the screens are and the directors and the producers sit, and I'll always, because usually they'll leave you in the trailers and they'll come get you when they need you, I'll always ask to get moved to set, and I'll sit in village and I'll just like watch conversations having being had. What are they looking for? What are they talking about? What are these camera angles that I'm looking at? Because no one teaches you these things. And
Mhm.
unless you're like I said, a lead or a supporting or a regular on a show, you don't have access to that. And it's so helpful for your work. It helps you feel more confident. A technical actor is a better actor because you know how to work a camera, you know how to find your light, you know how to like get your eye lines right.
Mhm.
So some version of like potential like shadowing, and then also like a mentorship, because I'm lucky to be right in the middle of a city. Not everyone has that ability.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like yourself who I coach, who I speak to, are lacking community. They're
Mm.
like, I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to create with. I don't
Where
know,
do you
like,
go next beyond school, like the school program too? I think
yeah.
there is a very, and you made me realize that, as soon as I started talking to you, I realized very quickly that once you're out there, you're kind of on your own and you have to kind of figure
Yes.
it out. And if I don't have
Mhm.
people like yourself as a mentor to kind of guide me, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd just have a pretty
Mhm.
little certificate, but then beyond that, what happens, right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
make a
and I
really
think what
valid point.
also people do is they go to like Facebook community guidelines or Facebook communities, like actors of, Edmonton or whatever,
Yeah.
which is great because there's a place for people, but also everyone and their dog has an opinion about something, and you might not be getting the right opinion from people. So
Hmm.
if you pose a question to these groups, are you hearing from actors who are like, I've been here, I've done that, like
Yeah.
I can help you?
Firsthand
Or are you
experience.
hearing from a bunch of like beginning actors that are like, I heard or I read, or from my one time on this, you're just getting a lot of stuff that may or may not have relevance or may not be the right thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I find a lot of my people that I coach come to me not with just like, how do I act, but like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I find this? What's my next step? What's this? And yes, there's stuff online, but it's so different than talking to a real actor who has life experience in the industry.
Hmm. No, for sure. I mean, the 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 Canadian Academy, I know like they do have some programs to a certain extent that help in that way, but definitely beyond that, I mean, for sure it's something that we would need to work on more to help
Mm-hmm.
us, like young actors and aspiring actors, people already in the industry who just, like you said, who are maybe coming back and they've lost touch and, it's not as simple. No, it makes a lot of sense. Jess, I feel like I can sit here and talk to you for probably another like 3 hours.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll leave you with this one question because it is a very human-centered, approach to the podcast. What do you hope people remember about Jess Brown, the actor behind the role?
Hmm. Um, I hope that people watch this and feel the authenticity and empathy that I try to move my life through. Like I I I think I try really hard to be as real as possible with like what this industry looks like, or what the artist's journey, or chasing your dreams in general is. And I hope that people feel comforted, or see a little bit of themselves in me, or feel a little bit inspired. Yeah, I think that I'm just like every other person trying to do something and trying to make my life feel meaningful and do what I love. And um, I think that, like, what's the point of being here on this earth if you're not chasing your joy and chasing your happiness? And so I just hope people feel inspired to do that, and like they have, you know, there's other people out there who are like, been knocked down and had to get back up, and questioned their existence and then went back. And I just, yeah, I hope it feels real, and I hope
Well, it
that
is real,
people
and
just
you're definitely an inspiration. I could tell you that
thank you.
you've inspired me in many ways. And again, that's the reason why you're here launching this podcast. Jess, thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this and for being here. You've been great, and
Of
I'm sure I'll
course.
have you back
Well,
at one point.
I would love that. And you inspire me too. I mean, the fact that you are like, you have the most incredible career, you have a family, and you're still seeking your joy and your artistry in this and in your acting. And I really am super inspired by that, and I talk about that a lot. And that is a gift that I've been given with coaching, is seeing all these people like doing what makes them happy. And so just keep doing what you're doing. I think it's great.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of House of Rue. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if this conversation made you think differently, reflect more deeply, or feel a little more connected to the human experience, I hope you'll share it too with someone who needs to hear it today. I'm Rosanna McHale, and this is House of Rue.